So, good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss a new chapter in economics, that is Unit 2, Employment in India and Tamil Nadu. So, particularly in this chapter, today we will be discussing about the different sectors of employment, employment structure in India, and then we'll be discussing about different types of employment, that is organized sector and unorganized sectors, and we'll be discussing about the private sector and the public sector, and the employment pattern and their trend in employment pattern. So you all know that there are three basic needs for a life. We have studied this from childhood days. The three basic needs are food, clothing and shelter. Yeah, that's true that we need food to maintain a balanced physic structure, and we need a clothing to protect us from different types of climate, and we need a shelter to have a peaceful life. But at the same time, my dear students, in this contemporary world, in this present world, there is one more thing which is more essential to our life. Can you please imagine what it could be? The one more thing that is more essential to the need of life is employment. You all know that we get food, and we wear dresses, and we build houses. How come you do all those things? Because you need money to buy food. Food items. Raw materials. You need money to buy the clothes. You need money to buy the raw materials to build your house. So from where you could get the money? So that is the big question. So that is why I am questioning you that this employment is more essential to the life at this present world. So to survive in this world, we should have an employment, or we should indulge in any employmental activities to earn money. Only without money you can't buy anything. Clear, my dear students? So the person who is employing, he is known as an employee. For example, I am an employee in a school because I work in a school to earn money. With that money, I can live a peaceful life, and the life sector and the life change. My life can change in my life. The life pattern, the lifestyle can change in my life. Either directly or indirectly, I am playing a vital role in the growth of this economy because I pay taxes. Is it right or wrong, my dear students? So I am an employee in a school, but at the same time, the man who gives me the work, the people who employ these workers and who pay rewards for their work are called the employers. The management of a school is an employer, and they are the employer, but I am the employee. Why do we do all these things? Because we need money to have or to lead a peaceful life. So there is a question. Sir, can everyone work in this environment or in this world? Obviously, students, there is a law. You would have studied in right against exploitation in civics, Article 20. You would have studied about those things about right against exploitation, which is one of the basic rights, fundamental rights of a citizen of India. So it says that children who are below 14 years should not be employed in any type of or any sort of works. So here comes a question, that is a labor force, and who can work, and what are the works that can be done. So here all the persons, the age group who are between the age group of 15 to 60 years can work, and they are known as the labor force. The works can be very different. There can be different streams of employment. There can be the doctors, advocate, engineers, plumbers, and the constructors, and the painters, and the teachers, and the professors, lecturers. There can be many employment, but the workforce, the labor force, is from the age group of 15 to 60. The labor force of the country is the number of people in the country who work and they are capable of doing their work. So the labor force, it means the people who are capable of doing their work. So my dear students, there is a big question. If there is a larger a percentage of a population in a country who are accounted by very children or less than 20 to 25 years, and there are only smaller proportion, I mean a smaller percentage of labor force with a high age, I mean more than 30 to 60. Can you visualize or can you imagine that the progress of the country would be very slow or very fast? The progress of the nation would be very slow, because the larger percentage of the population is accounted by the children. So for the progress of the nation and for the growth of the economy of the nation and to boost the sectors, I mean either it might be the private sector or the government sector, or it might be the primary, secondary or tertiary, the labor force must be between 15 to 60, and they must be more skilled and talented. Obviously this is the scenario where we search for the more talented person, we search for more skilled person, the person who knows more technology, who is affordable to do any work at any situations. And such kind of persons are more capable, and they are adding a more value added system to the economic boost, I mean the progress of the nation. So in such a case, you all know that India is a multi-dimensional nation. I mean the employment of India is in multi-dimensional. In every aspect, we have a linguistic diversity, we have regional diversity and ethnicity, but at the same time we have a multi-dimensional nature of employment, because you all know that India is an agrarian economy. It means even in this present world, in this time in 2020, more than 50% of the population of India is doing their employment that is in agriculture. It is the primary sector. There are more than 50% of Indian population are still dependent on agriculture. So that is why we say that India is an agrarian nation. And Indian economy is an agrarian economy. So in such a kind, India has a nature of employment that is multi-dimensional. We have primary sector, we have secondary sector, and we have a tertiary sector. Whereas you see, some employment are throughout the year, or some employment, I mean some sectors work throughout the year, and some sectors work for a particular month or a particular period in a year. So what do you mean by primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector? You all know the primary sector is an agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, and all those where the raw materials can be derived. And secondary sector is such a sector where the raw materials are given as a finished product, I mean the manufacturing industry. And you all know about the tertiary sector. Tertiary sector is about the services sector, the transportation, where it makes it possible that the goods are available to us from the manufacturing sector, I mean a secondary sector. So in such a case, the structure of employment denotes the number of workers engaged in different sectors of the economy. As I told you earlier, more than 50% of Indian population still depends upon agriculture. So this particular structure denotes the number of workers engaged in different sector of economy. If there are larger proportion or the larger percentage in the agricultural sector, I mean in a primary sector, it denotes that the larger number of people are employed in agricultural sector, I mean in a primary sector. Though the occupational pattern varies from one country to another country, obviously the employment pattern varies from one country to another country. Let us take an example of developing countries and developed countries. You all know that India is a developing countries. So in developing countries, there will be a larger percentage or larger proportion of people who engage in primary sector. Whereas compared to the proportion of secondary sector and tertiary sectors. But when you take an example of developed nations like America and Russia and Japan, there you could see the larger number of persons, or the larger number of people, I mean the larger number of percentage of the proportion of the people of that particular nation will engage in secondary sector and tertiary sector when compared to the primary sectors. So in a developing sector, the reason why we are studying this is that in a developing sector, I mean in a developing nation, the primary sector, the proportion of the people who indulge in this primary sector is in higher proportions. So that is why I say the structure of employment denotes the economy of the particular nation. So as I told you earlier, whereas in developed countries, we would have noticed that only lesser number of people engage in agriculture, whereas the larger proportion of the peoples engage in tertiary sectors. The reason why we are studying about this sector is that the agricultural sector, I mean the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector plays a vital role in the development of the nation. So this employment structure determines the development of a particular nation or the development of an economy of a nation. So now we are going to discuss about the types of employment or the different types of employment. We have studied about employment structure, and let's now discuss about the different types of employment. In this particular topic, we will be discussing about organized sector and a private sector. So what are organized sector? So what are unorganized sector? So the organized sector is one that is incorporated with appropriate authority or government and follows appropriate rules and regulations. You all know, when I study this statement, that organized sector is in government sector because they have a certain rules and regulations, and they follow that rules and regulations, and because of that, that particular sector are formal by nature, and there is always a betterment of life in those sectors. In short, my dear students, organized sectors are those which are deliberately planned, designed, and duly sanctioned by the competent authority. So in India, employees of central government or state government or employees of banks, railways, insurance, and some of the public sector industries can be called as organized sector. So in this organized sector, they have certain rules and regulations for the welfare of their employee. Let's discuss about those things. The employee in this sector, I mean in organized sector, are provided with job security, and they receive higher wages than those of unorganized sector because they have some formal procedures and processes in electing such a kind of a person for that particular employment. It is done according to the certain rules and regulations given by law. So these people who engage in work in organized sector have high job security, and they get higher wages as when compared to unorganized sector. The organized sector people who work in organized sector get good salary, and they have only fixed working hours, and they are given paid holidays, and they are provided with medical allowances and insurance also. But in case of unorganized sector, you all know that unorganized sector is like a private company where you don't have any job security, and your manpower and your knowledge power is taken more, but the value or that you get for the work that you have done is very low. I mean the job security is there is no job security. So unorganized sector of the economy are characterized by the household manufacturing activities and small scale industry. Where small scale industries, let's take an example that this unorganized sector can be the private sector itself. So when you work in a private sector, do you have any job security there? Or do you get high enough wages? Or do you get a paid holidays? No, not at all. So in such kind of sector are known as unorganized sector, whereas in unorganized sector, the employment is not secured. I mean, they don't have any job security. So if there is no work, the people are asked to leave the job. But in case of organized sector, it is not like that. Let's take an example of this contemporary time. So during the COVID-19, there are many people who work in unorganized sector are now without the job. But the people who work in this organized sector, in government sectors, are secured with their jobs, and they even get a pay. But in case of unorganized sector, the people who are working in unorganized sector, they don't get any pay. There is no job security, and there is no work because no work at this present time during COVID-19. And many people are asked to leave the job. So this sector includes a large number of people who are employed at their own, doing very small jobs like selling on streets, doing repairing works, and so on. This is also an unorganized sector, the employment of an unorganized sector. So when there is no job, we are asked to live. So therefore I could say that there is no job security, and the terms of employment are not fixed, and they are not regular. It varies according to the times, and there is no any special benefits. There are no any special benefits like that, as if we have studied in the organized sector that employees are given a paid holiday and they have insured their medical allowances, but in case of unorganized sector it is not so. So that is what we are going to discuss now. As I told you earlier, that all the public sectors, I mean organized sectors, comes under a public sector, and unorganized sector comes under a private sector because we differentiate or we classify it. It is on the basis of assets, and it is responsible for the delivery of the services. We differentiate this as a primary sector and secondary sector and tertiary sector. It is because of the work that the manpower is engaged. The same manner, here we, on the basis of the assets that is owned by the government or by the private, we differentiate that into the public sector and the private sector. As you all know, what will be the main motive of the public sector is that a service motive. The main motive of the public sector is a service motive, and all the assets are owned by the government, and the wages to the employee are paid by the government. Let's take an example like an NLC, Naval Lignite Corporation, SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited, and BSL Bharat Sankar Nigam Limited. And there are many companies like Bell. So all these sectors are public sector, where the main intention and the motive of this sector is that a service motive. And all the assets are owned by the government and the wages are paid by the government. But in case of a private sector, like a Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Tata Steel, TVS Motors. So here the main intention is the profit, like Reliance. There are many examples can be said. The main intention of the private sector is a profit motive. They need to get a higher profit, but the pay is very less. Those assets are owned by individuals and not by the government, and the wages paid to the employee, it is by the owner of a private enterprises, and you don't get a higher way, and you don't get any allowances or any insurance. And these are the differences between the private sector and the public sector, and it is correlated, it is always related with the organized sector and unorganized sector. So as I told you in the introduction of this chapter, that we will be studying about the employment pattern. Obviously, my dear students, now the pattern of employment is entirely changing. There are many people who sit in the work, who sit in the home and work, online business, like Amazon. And there are many people who work for part-time. They work in Amazon delivery, like a delivery person, from morning 6 to evening 4, and after evening 4 they take a rest for 2 hours, and from again in night they work in any motel, I mean a hotel, in a highway hotel, from 8 to 10 or 12. So in recent days there has been a change in employment pattern, and because of the change in the employment pattern, it has helped the employers to develop more flexible working patterns among their employees. Yes, absolutely. Now the shift basis has been introduced. Now there are many companies who works on the shift basis. They work all together of 24 hours. They work even at night time and they work at the daytime. There are many IT companies which works at the daytime and even at the night time. It is because of the employment pattern that we are following, and it is because of the change of the employment pattern that people are following. So in such cases, so what are the different types of trends that are being followed in employment pattern? Is one is increasing self-employment. There are many people who now they have started to employ themselves, self-employment. And there are many companies using fewer full-time employees and tending to offer more short-term contracts. I mean, they are now planning to give a contract work basis that they can sit in their home and they can work, and now they're planning for a part-time employees, and there has been a growth in part-time employment. The reason behind that is that it is due to the lifestyle of the people. Yes, obviously, they need to enjoy their life. They need to live a holistic life, the peaceful life. So the people, when the people have changed the trend, and obviously there is a change in the employment pattern, and which has helped the employers to develop a flexible working pattern among the employees. So these are the employment patterns that are being followed. So when you speak about Tamil Nadu, So when we speak about Tamil Nadu, the employment trend, despite there is a sharp decline in a gross domestic product of agriculture, but agriculture continues to be the largest employer in Tamil Nadu. Not only in Tamil Nadu, my dear students, I told you earlier that India is an agrarian economy. It is because more than 50% of people have indulged in agriculture in India. We are dependent upon the monsoon. We are dependent upon the monsoon climate. So, though there is a sharp decline in gross domestic product, but even now there are many people who indulge in agriculture. It continues to be the largest employer in Tamil Nadu. This is because the non-agriculture sector are not yet to generate enough employment to affect a shift of forced labor. I mean a labor force. There are many people who have the capability to, as I told you, the labor force is nothing but the capability of doing work. There are many people, the age group is between 15 to 60. So there are many people who are capable to do work, but the scenario or the opportunity that is being provided in Tamil Nadu is very less, and that is why there are many people who are still engaged in agriculture. The primary sector is playing a vital role even in even in Tamil Nadu at this particular year, in this present year. The secondary sector or the primary tertiary sector have not generated enough employment opportunity to the peoples. So the most of the employment growth in Tamil Nadu has been contributed by unorganized and informal sectors, and because of this problem, many people are working in unorganized and informal sector. You all know that in unorganized sector, as we discussed earlier, they work for a higher number of hours. They work for more than 10, 11 and 12 hours, but the wages that they get is very low. But the amount they paid as a salary is very low. The reason why we are studying about this employment trend, the different types of employment, is, as we have discussed in the beginning of this chapter, nowadays this employment is also one of the basic needs of a life. We all know that the basic needs of our life is food, shelter and clothing, but in the present world one more essential need has to be added in that list, that is employment. Because to survive in the world we all need employment, and because of that employment we earn money, and with that money we lead a peaceful life, and either directly or indirectly we play a vital role in the development of the economy of the particular nation. So with this we have completed this chapter. Thank you, students.